Thank you very much, everybody. We transition now to, we are going to have two sessions today that we call it In Conversation With. So here we go into more details on some of the topics. Again, trying to talk about some things. Our first In Conversation With is going to be with Faith, who was one of our panelists, but we have also brought Stephanie Redding, who is an economics senior career consultant at the University of Warwick. So Stephanie's role is to support students coming from university into applying for graduate jobs. And we also have Tesfa Mehari, who is deputy head of the Department of Economics at the University of Greenwich. University of Greenwich, the university has done a lot to try to change the culture and the ways that in the do recruitment. So thank you very much for being here again, Faith, Stephanie, and Tesfa. And so can I start with Stephanie, please? But I was telling you, well, Stephanie sorted out a little bit here. The idea for this session is to kind of put together all these strands that we have. So put like face-to-face, those ones supporting students coming into the into becoming economists in a way, because, you know, once you are a graduate economist, you need to actually get a job in order to become a real economist that kind of make policy and influence the world, and to bring also the academic perspective, those ones who support students from their teaching side, support students from the academic side. And they also kind of bring staff together, academic staff, who are the ones who kind of make all this to happen. So let me start, let's kind of change a little bit the order. And let me start with Tesfa then. Let's just start with the academic side while Stephanie sorts things. And Tesfa, thank you very much. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. At Greenwich, you went through a full change in recruitment practices to increase diversity among the academic staff. Could you please tell us what worked well for you, and what do you think could be the key learning points to other departments in economics?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I have got 5 minutes, I believe, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll try to squeeze a number of things on that. In Greenwich, the change has, first of all, let me describe the main changes that we have done and why they were enabled to happen. The main things that I would like to mention is the academic staff was highly supported by a semi-detached members of staff, which usually were described as hourly paid lecturers. And usually you would see people who work on this level tend to be also diverse. Okay, therefore people who, for one reason or another, may not have got the full-time job, or who might have family issues or etc. Therefore, there are the diverse community that has been excluded. You would find them more on this hourly paid. So it required a certain leader, and leadership is key, by the way, here, who saw that why are these people semi-detached? And by questioning that, eventually the discussion led into saying we need to stop this hourly paid and full-time staff dichotomy. Why? Because one, it harms the organization, because these people will only see that they are only here for 1 hour, and therefore they will have to leave. Always they will be teaching because they will have to take jobs in several places. These people also do not have a career plan, and therefore the organization is not benefiting. The students are not benefiting because these people, in as much as they would like to give, they don't have the time. And the third is there is that element of exclusion. So by incorporating these people into teaching fellows, into more or less fractional staff, that clearly opened the pathway which helped us to increase our diversity. I'm quite happy to extend on this during the question and answer sessions. So this was one source. By integrating them into the full-time staff, based on their fraction, some of them may take 50%, others even made themselves available. I can work for you all day. And with that, therefore, we managed to get full-time commitment from these people. And most of these people managed to apply and get a full-time job and add to our diversity. Another window that we opened in Greenwich was identifying the postgraduate teaching fellows. Most of these people would be PhD students, and these people were also felt excluded in a sense that we only use them whenever we need to fill a small gap. And by integrating them, the leader that we had at that time clearly allocated me as the deputy head to really guide these people and make them integrated into our system. They became part of the appraisal process where they would see where they are heading in addition to the PhD or the study which they are doing. What about in terms of their career? And some of them were clearly looking for joining into the academic staff, whether they join us or they go to another university. We clearly gave them objectives, made them part of our meetings, allowed them to engage with student experience and therefore feel the type of leader that they can have. Therefore, they will have full experience of what it looks to be a teacher looking after students from entry to graduation. And with that, therefore, we also we allocated mentors for these people to guide them, and eventually we succeeded to progress them into the full-time staff with all the diversity that it entails. That's the other success. The third element, which I would mention, is we questioned our recruitment process and that went from who writes the job description, the person specification. And with that, when increasingly we started questioning that our aim will have to be diversity. Why? Because we recognize talents are fairly distributed in society, but some talents are allowed to shine while others are not. So why? And therefore, we questioned the way we advertise things, the way where we advertise it. We encourage people to go into wider space, even beyond academia. And based on that, therefore, the next step is this helped us to get diverse applications. Once we get the diverse application, we also questioned who are in the panel, who are screening, shortlisting, and interviewing these people. And by adding diversity to that, therefore, we added the people who would judge them differently, who would always look for their talents rather than to their accent or to their gender, to whatever makes them different from us. Therefore, by diversifying the recruitment panel, therefore we managed that also very helpful. Still, some people were not successful in this process, and we did not leave them alone. We simply said, okay, some people were really made it up to the shortlisting, but they did not come. But these are the type of diverse people that we see. So we questioned the feedback process and said, by the way, if you did this and this and this and this, you would have succeeded to get the job. And that person, therefore, many people, by encouraging them to reapply again, we managed to get more diversity in the process. Why? Because we believe diversity, or at that time, the leader that came to us, a certain person, which I'm not allowed to mention the name, really felt passionate about this and said, diversity benefits the organization, diversity benefits the students, diversity benefits the staff member who is benefiting, who is getting recruited. Diversity also benefits the students because having role models in front of the students from diverse backgrounds also does help our students to achieve well and to aim high. I think I did 5 minutes, so I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tesfa. And I think a lot of very interesting points. So you actually, before starting with your own recruitment practices, looking outwards, you started looking inside first, like improving your culture and getting people that were already part of the organization involved and, you know, feeling more part, kind of changing this culture. And then you started moving forward. I think this is a very interesting thing because sometimes we don't even know where to start. So that's just making changes, but perhaps we just start thinking about what we have already and how we can value what we have is very, very important. So this is so good. Now Stephanie's back, so I really hope that things work now, Stephanie.
So do I. Can you hear me?
Great,
Brilliant.
amazing.
Okay,
Thank
right.
you.
Well, now I've experienced what I tell my students about.
Yeah, so let me first ask the question again, so for people. So
Okay.
as I said, in your role, you advise many economic students looking for a graduate position in economics. So I guess the question is, what of the main challenges, what you consider to be the main challenges for economic students from underrepresented backgrounds, for instance, women, ethnic minorities, poor socioeconomic backgrounds, to be when they apply for these jobs?
Okay, well, I'm going to sound a little bit like Kieran on repeat now, because a lot of the points that he made, I'm going to restate now. So first of all, I'd say one of the main challenges for economic students, whatever their background, is the challenge of being able to follow a career path that is right for them as individuals. So every year I attempt with the first year economic students at Warwick to do some myth busting around that assumption that you have to gain a first year insight program in investment banking or consulting. There's a lot of noise about this, particularly at Warwick, and it's something that isn't right for all students. And there are a lot of opportunities that they can do without going down those routes. But again, going back to what Kieran said, it's about putting that investment in time to explore those different options. So I think that this side of things is really heightened for economic students from underrepresented groups, particularly as they might experience additional pressures from family members to enter careers with high earning potential, even if these careers aren't particularly right for them or of interest to them. So that's one of the first challenges that I wanted to talk about. I now want to move on and talk about one of the second challenges, which Kieran's already mentioned, and this is about students from underrepresented backgrounds struggling to curate their experiences. So I've worked with many economic students from underrepresented backgrounds who've got some fabulous experiences in retail, in customer service, but they say, you know, it's not relevant. And I have to convince them, well, it is relevant. You can put that in the relevant experience section of your CV and tease out some of the really valuable client relationship building skills that you perhaps have gained in retail experience. To use that within your application. So that is a big thing to mention, and particularly if they don't actually make it to me to have those conversations about the fact that they can use those very valuable experiences within the recruitment process. Now, the third challenge, which is really associated and has already been mentioned by Kieran too, is the challenge faced by these types of students who don't have readily accessible role models. So in my 20 years of working with students in HE, I've had so many conversations with both economic students and students from other disciplines where they're telling me that they've really struggled to gain relevant work experience because they don't have the same networks as other students. And I realise here that many employers have introduced programmes to encourage students from underrepresented backgrounds to apply for their vacancies. And I'm also aware that employers are trying to ring fence some of these opportunities for students from underrepresented groups too. But this work really relies on, first of all, the target group that the employers are trying to reach being interested on what's on offer and understanding what's on offer. And secondly, it relies on students feeling comfortable with self-identifying. And I think there's a lot of work that could be done to help here as well. Now, the next challenge that I wanted to mention that economics students face is the fact that AI is being used within the recruitment processes by many employers now. And as many of you will have already picked up upon that work in this space, AI picks up on keywords and phrases. And within the application process, AI is used, so employers don't necessarily have to spend so long in those initial stages. So if a student is very savvy and understands how to game that system and can play buzzword bingo, they're going to do really well at those initial stages. But for students who perhaps don't have the understanding of how to play that system, that have already struggled with perhaps curating their experiences, it's going to be more difficult for them to maybe get to the next stages of the recruitment process. So I'd really be interested to understand more about what recruiters are going to do in this space to evolve their recruitment processes to meet some of those challenges as well. Now, the next challenge that I wanted to talk about is the fact that university career services do an awful lot to try to promote what's on offer, but this is really difficult to do in this day and age because there's so many services that universities want to promote and students are very time poor. So it's whether they actually understand about the support that is on offer. So I've worked with students from some of these underrepresented groups in my time at Warwick on interview technique, and touching on what Kieran said before about trying to sort of really understand what is expected within the recruitment process. So when those students reach me and do that work, very often they can be successful. But I've seen a strong correlation between the groups that do meet with me and get that support, and that the fact that they're already using other groups, so SEO London, the brokerage. So they've come to me because they might have been told by those organisations to use their career service. Now, finally, I wanted to touch upon the challenge, which is again been mentioned by Kieran already, and this is about the costs associated with doing insight programmes. So I am aware that a number of employers whose career service days I've attended this year, talking about diversity in recruitment and then not paying students to actually attend their Insight Day programmes. So this is going to mean that students from those groups that can't afford to do those programmes aren't going to have those opportunities. So I think that this is an area that employers really need to look really carefully at. And the other area that's already been mentioned by Kieran is the fact that there's a gap between student finance that's provided as a student, and if they are successful in acquiring a job in a city, and there's going to be associated onboarding costs where they're going to have to spend out on a deposit on an expensive London flat and they've not received their first salary. I know I've spoken to students who have been in that position, and I've tried to encourage them to talk to employers about whether there's something that can be done to support with that. But it should be something that is maybe written into a diversity policy on an employer's website and made more specific when they actually are doing the hiring process.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Sorry, Stephanie.
Yes, so that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. A lot of things to think, and a lot of things that we can consider also for academics in a way. I think sometimes when we are recruiting academics, we forget that different academics have different backgrounds in a way. And I remember arriving to my first job with only £10 in my pocket, and that was all I had for the rest of the month until I got. And I had my partner. We kind of laugh now about it. But it is important to kind of consider that moving cities, moving house is a huge expenditure. It's big. Academics move all around the world. If you just take for granted that, oh yeah, that's okay. So you just move from this country to this country, and you have to set up. It's a huge expenditure, and if you don't have the family background to support with this might be quite a barrier for all these movements. So thank you very much for pointing that out. And I do think it's relevant across the board. Like it doesn't really even depend on the seniority that you might be recruiting, because this is when I go for a job interview now, I can afford it, but easily I'll spend £500 goes into my credit card. I'm on all the expensive, and then I have to claim it back. So I do realize that that's not affordable for everybody. So, in fact, I would like to go back to Faith. And Faith, you have told us, and I'm amazed. I have learned a lot about the things that you are actually doing and all where you get all these learning points. So, very briefly, and in fact, a lot of people are asking about this. If you have to advise other companies, other institutions about the key learning points of the activities or the initiatives that you have been developing, can you share some of these ones with us? I know you have done internship, you have doing a lot of these programs, and perhaps if you share some of the key learning points and how do you think people should go about acting these things if they are planning to?
Yeah, so as I was saying before, most of our recruitment is on those more junior levels. I think one thing that we learned from SEO London, who we work with quite closely for our schemes, is giving candidates an opportunity to hear about the company and what the job entails before they even apply. So what we do is a sort of hour-long webinar with a group of, I think last time it was about 70 potential candidates, and told them about capital economics, what a life in a day of an economist looks like, the sort of work that they would be doing. And it was really helpful for us as well, because it also saves us a bit of time in the interviews. For our grad scheme in the summer, we had sort of 25 interviews, and so to cut that out of the interviews is also really important. I think lots of people don't understand what even capital economics is. You know, the work that we produce is different to other similar companies, and so to give them an opportunity to hear about that and decide whether it's right for them or not. You know, as I was saying, having consultancy in our name is somewhat incorrect, and that most of the work is subscription based, and it's the same work that's sent out to many different companies, not bespoke. And so really making that clear to a big group of potential candidates, I think, is really helpful. It arms them with the knowledge of what the job entails. Thinking of other things that work really well, so we work with Access Aspiration. I would really recommend them. They provide work experience students to us 3 times per year who are sort of doing their A-levels. We hope that this will build a pipeline down the line, but again, it's a really nice opportunity for our own employees to sort of gain a management experience or to work on their career goals, as well as understand why you know, providing these opportunities to people from underrepresented backgrounds and low income backgrounds is really important, and it boosts our DEI credentials, which is always really nice and helpful. We now don't take any work experience students who don't come from Access Aspiration. We thought it's good to have a clear line. You know, my cousin can't come and do work experience with us anymore, I'm afraid. And then yeah, from the internship, I think this gave us some really important ways to improve. We run exit interviews with all employees who leave the business, but the exit interviews of the interns was really useful. I think one thing that we took on board is to have people start in sort of a critical mass. When we first ran the scheme in the first year, we thought we'd have 2 or 3 people join, and then in the second year we thought, well, you know, if we're running this for 2 or 3 people, why not run it for 5? Again, it helps us to think about career opportunities for our more junior economists, that they can be involved in the recruitment of the scheme and manage the individuals. And we've also adjusted the timing slightly so that they join with our student economist placement students, and then we can tie in all of the induction as one, and it's more efficient, but also I think quite nice for the new interns and students to join in a big group and feel a bit more comfortable than they might if they were a smaller group. And yeah, making sure that in that induction they meet the exec team, that they meet the different functions. I mean, we're mostly economists, so there's about 77 economists, I think, at the company at the moment of 150, but we've also got lots of other departments that are really key to understanding. So building those bridges between the sales department, the marketing department, product, and all the rest, HR, of course. So yeah, making sure that we're building those links as well. And then, yeah, I think employee voice, just having the opportunity to speak directly back to the company through staff surveys and exit interviews, reviews, one-on-ones, all sorts of things like that to help build the culture that we really want, that's listening to the employee and making sure that there's psychological safety for people who work in the business.
Thank you very much, Faith. And perhaps, Faith, I'm going to stay with you because we have a question from Leda Patelli. It says, to what extent do the numerical and verbal tests often used as a first screening before getting to the interview stage help with leveling the play field and improving diversity and inclusion, or whether they help at all? And perhaps also, Stephanie, you have experience, but just continue with Faith, if you can very quickly tell us something, if you use it or if you haven't used it.
Yeah, so we don't do numerical testing at all. We only do writing tests. That's because the majority, what we aim to do at Capital Economics is write economics for lay people. So it's mostly about, is it clear, concise and pithy? And so it's the written tests that are most important. We anonymise all of them, which gives some really surprising results. I quite enjoy the meeting I have with the grad recruitment team afterwards, where we've sort of placed where we think people are after their interviews, and then seeing how it's mixed up once you get once you reveal who wrote the writing test. AI is obviously a factor there that we're conscious of. It's quite difficult to know if somebody is using AI, particularly when the tests are done at home. We run them through various tests to see if we think AI has been used, and now we try and use we try and give questions where it's sort of saying that these here is some data. What do you think this government would do for interest rates based on this data? And then we think that's harder for them to use an AI answer for. And yeah, it's the writing test is incredibly important. I think being able to, I don't think it's equal weight to the interview, but it's near enough.
Thank you very much, Faith. Stephanie, do you want to add anything on that?
It's quite a difficult question to answer because of the students that do select in and come to see me. I tend to spend more time supporting them with the interview stage. So usually they've got through the initial screening stages, but I am aware that a lot of recruiters are sort of adjusting things back again. So there was a recruiter that was using gamification and is now using numerical tests through SHL now. So I think there's some different moves in terms of trying to sort of make them most appropriate in the sort of marketplace at the moment. But I think that the higher view process, picking up on what Kieran said as well, it is really surprising what transcripts will come up with when you do have an accent. And I know that just from looking through sessions that I've recorded and having to change words. So it is a problematic area.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. I think we have the question from Matthew, and then I think we close this session. But Matthew, want to come in?
Hi, I am Matthew Bunny from the Office for Budget Responsibility. I'm a senior economist here. I have quite a specific question picking up on something Faith mentioned about the use of anonymizing CVs, which I think is, well, it's something that's still used in the civil service in recruitment, but I think Faith makes a really good point about some of the possible downsides, and I think I've had my own reservations about the process, but I'd be curious just about the panel more generally about people's experience with anonymizing CVs, if they find it helpful or more of a hindrance.
Anyone who wants to pick up? Sorry, Faith, I think I've called into you too much, but if you want to pick this up.
Yeah, so this was, we've spent a lot of time talking about it, I have to say, because there obviously are pros and cons, but that's where we've landed, that we don't do it because we're concerned that the more privileged people would have more polished CVs, would have more opportunities for more input on their CVs than others do. So we try to give lots of advice on what to include in a CV and cover letter, so that there's this equal playing field for everyone. So that's published on our website under all of the schemes. But no, we've landed on not anonymizing.
Thank you very much. Stefas, do you want to add something to this?
Just to say there is a value in that anonymizing CV, but the concept of who is judging once those CVs have come is very important to identify, because you anonymize it to avoid bias. Well, another way to do that is also, why don't you make the people who make the final decision a bit diverse? Because people might have gone through that process. For example, let me take myself. There was a time where when I was looking for a job, I felt immediately there were times where the moment they see people, for a genuine reason, the people they may see my name at the time that I was getting recruited, therefore the work experience, immediately people assume that this person may need, he's good, everything is good, but his name probably indicates that he's likely to need an application for work permit. So to overcome this, I started to rewrite my CV itself to say, I am a British citizen, I don't need work permit. You get me? In bold, in big number at the top of it, just as a way of overcome, because I felt immediately when they saw they may not go beyond that. So when you see clear sources of potential bias, some of it genuine, because I am a company or I'm an organization, and therefore it will cost me money and time to go through all this process. Therefore, I would rather go for the safe option. Okay. But in the process, someone's career is getting given. Therefore, with that, either identify the potential reasons and give good training for the people who screen that. If not, at least diversify the people who make final decision at different stages during the interview and the recruitment process, at least to minimize. Bias will always live with us, but to be aware of it, to say, are you sure you are not biased because of 1, 2, 3? Are you sure? For that conscience, I cannot go to bed if I don't do this right, is very important. So diversity can help.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And I'm so sorry, Emma, we do have to move on. We are like running late, but please do send us your questions on the chat, and then we can try to address them over there. Thank you very much, everybody. We have learned that kind of biases come in many shapes and forms. They come as unconscious biases, there are conscious biases. So we just need to be careful trying to address both. And the CV is a clear example that sometimes when we address unconscious biases, we just let conscious biases come in. Thank you very much, everybody. It has been an interesting and lively conversation. As you can see, questions keep coming up, and we're going to collect some of these as well for the future and to kind of shape our events. Thank you to our panelists, and I'm really happy to move on now to our third session of the day.